The scientific vessel of the Galactic Federation orbited Earth, preparing for their second cultural exchange mission. The ship's commanders had extensively briefed the scientific team on lessons learned from the previous mission, with passing references to the Trari incident as a cautionary tale. This time, they assured, the appropriate protocols would prevent any cultural misunderstandings. The diverse scientific team had been specially selected for their expertise and supposed emotional stability. Dr. Kthar, the chief xenolinguist, belonged to a reptilian species that prized logic above all else. Tall and covered in iridescent scales that shifted subtly with his moods, Kthar viewed human emotional displays as fundamentally irrational. His slitted yellow eyes rarely blinked, and his voice maintained a precise, measured cadence regardless of circumstances. Professor Xyler served as the xenobotanist, a silicon-based life form whose crystalline body structure refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. Xyler analyzed everything purely through its chemical composition and exhibited particular sensitivity to organic chaos. Communication occurred through vibrations that translated into speech, with occasional harmonic overtones that reflected internal states. Specialist Fleep, the xenoanthropologist, came from an insectoid species barely 20 centimeters tall. With 6 delicate limbs and large compound eyes, Fleep meticulously documented social rituals but could become overwhelmed by stimuli from larger beings. A specialized translation device attached to Fleep's thorax converted the rapid clicking of mandibles into understandable speech. Dr. Eris, the comparative physiologist, most closely resembled Earth mammals with soft purple fur and expressive ears. Practical and analytical by nature, Eris nonetheless possessed a delicate constitution that reacted poorly to strong biological stimuli. A specialized breathing apparatus filtered air through various membranes to reduce sensory overload. The team gathered in the ship's main data analysis chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of preliminary cultural information provided by humans. The sleek, sterile environment contrasted sharply with the vibrant, chaotic images of Earth that floated before them. This appears to be a technical manual, Kthar observed, manipulating a digital file labeled "Welcome to Earth Cuisine" with a long, scaled finger. The humans have designed it specifically to be helpful to visitors. An efficient beginning point, Xyler's body hummed with approval. Nutritional analysis will provide insight into biological compatibility. The initial pages seemed innocuous enough. Simple vegetable preparations called salads displayed bright colors and basic chemical structures. Bread, a staple carbohydrate, demonstrated straightforward thermal processing. The team began to relax, making notes and exchanging observations. Fermented vegetables, Xyler vibrated as they examined the next section on pickled foods. A controlled decomposition process, though not optimally executed. Interesting preservation technique. The bacteriological implications suggest an evolutionary adaptation to preserve seasonal nutrients, Eris added, ears perked with scientific interest. They continued paging through the digital cookbook, occasionally pausing to discuss particularly interesting chemical reactions or cultural implications in food preparation. Then they reached a section called Traditional Delicacies Around the World. Haggis, Kthar read aloud. A traditional Scottish dish made from a sheep's heart, liver, and lungs, minced with onion, oatmeal, suet, spices, and salt, mixed with stock, and traditionally boiled in the animal's stomach for approximately 3 hours. The room fell silent. Xyler's crystalline structure darkened slightly. This preparation method is profoundly illogical, Kthar finally stated. The energy expenditure to process these specific organs, only to encase them within an excretory vessel, suggests a severe misunderstanding of efficient nutrition. The chaotic mixture of organic compounds, Xyler vibrated in distress, combined with thermally inefficient application creates potential biological hazards. The enzymatic interactions alone would produce numerous unpredictable compounds. Fleep's mandibles clicked rapidly as the tiny xenoanthropologist made frantic notes. Fascinating cultural significance in utilizing all parts of prey species. Suggests historical resource scarcity informing ritual consumption. They cautiously continued to the next entry. Ballot, red kthar, a developing duck embryo that is boiled and eaten from a shell. It is commonly sold as street food in the Philippines. The length of incubation before the egg is cooked is a matter of local preference, but ranges from 14 to 21 days. An image accompanied the text. A partially developed embryo within an egg, tiny feathers, and beak visible. Dr. Aris suddenly clutched at the specialized breathing apparatus, ears flattening against purple fur. The developmental process interrupted for consumption. The implications. The physiologist gagged audibly. It resembles parasitic procedures or congenital defects. I cannot. Fleep's compound eyes seem to expand. The ritual consumption of developing life forms presents a stark ethical contrast with many galactic species norms. The ceremonial implications of consuming potential rather than actualized life requires extensive documentation. Despite these clinical words, Fleep's tiny body trembled visibly. I fail to understand the logical framework that would prioritize this particular developmental stage for consumption, Kthar stated, but a slight elevation in his normally measured voice betrayed discomfort. Xyler remained silent, crystal facets now a dull, muted color. They reluctantly proceeded to the final entry on the page. Surströmming, Kthar read, a lightly salted fermented Baltic Sea herring traditional to Swedish cuisine. The fermentation process continues after the fish is tinned, releasing gases that cause the can to bulge. Due to its pungent, offensive smell, surströmming is often eaten outdoors. When opened, the can releases a strong, foul odor, and many open it submerged in water to reduce the smell. Before Kthar could finish reading, the cookbook's advanced multimedia features activated, providing an olfactory simulation of the described food. The ship's systems, designed to provide immersive cultural experiences, faithfully reproduced the infamous aroma. Chaos erupted in the scientific chamber. Fleep emitted a high-pitched, keening sound before collapsing completely, tiny limbs folding inward. The translator device continued to emit distressed, clicking even as the xenoanthropologist lost consciousness. Xyler's crystalline form contracted violently, facets dimming to near black as internal vibrations reached a dangerous frequency. A low, resonant tone like stressed glass emanated from their core. Dr. Aris lurched forward, clawed hands covering the breathing apparatus in a futile attempt to block the simulated odor. Purple fur stood on end as the physiologist heaved uncontrollably before slumping sideways. Even Kthar, the most composed of the group, exhibited distress. His scales flattened tightly against his body, and a soft hissing escaped between clenched teeth. This is the epitome of illogicality, he managed before his reptilian eyes glazed over. The ship's medical alert system activated, flooding the chamber with pulsing blue light as robotic medical assistants rushed to attend to the incapacitated scientific team. The first cultural catastrophe had occurred before they even reached Earth's surface. In the ship's medical bay, Fleep and Aris received treatment while the team engaged in heated debate about the cookbook incident. The sterile, white environment, designed to accommodate diverse physiologies, hummed with monitoring equipment and air purification systems. We cannot make judgments based on isolated data, Kthar insisted. Scales now return to their normal iridescent state. Direct observation is required for comprehensive understanding. However, the preliminary data is deeply alarming from a logical perspective. Xyler, whose crystalline form had regained some luster, vibrated in measured tones. The biochemical inefficiency and potential toxicity of the described compounds cannot be disputed. Many processes deliberately cultivate bacterial growth that would be considered dangerous contamination in rational food science. Dr. Aris, still looking pale beneath purple fur, shuddered visibly. The physiological implications of consuming such substances raise serious compatibility concerns. If these represent standard nutritional practices, our biological responses could jeopardize diplomatic relations. Fleep, smallest but perhaps most resilient of the group, had resumed taking notes from a recovery pod. While traumatic, these observations provide invaluable ethnographic data. They may represent extreme cultural expressions that require documentation, regardless of our physiological responses. After extensive deliberation, they reached a consensus. They would proceed with direct observation at the cultural exchange site, but exercise extreme caution, particularly regarding any culinary demonstrations. The landing shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere the following day, carrying the slightly apprehensive scientific team. Despite extensive preparation, nothing could fully prepare them for the sensory onslaught that awaited. For Xyler, Earth represented uncontrolled organic chaos. The silicon-based xenobotanist sensors detected billions of microorganisms, pollen particles, and organic compounds swirling through the air. Every surface teemed with life forms engaged in constant chemical exchange. What humans, perceived as a pleasant spring day, registered to Xyler as biochemical warfare. Thar struggled with the emotional cacophony. Humans laughed, shouted, and expressed feelings with abandon, creating what the logical xenolinguist could only classify as unnecessary sound pollution. The constant violation of efficient communication protocols taxed his cognitive resources. Tiny Fleep experienced the most intense overwhelm. From the xenoanthropologist's perspective, humans loomed like mobile skyscrapers, their movements creating seismic disturbances. The riot of colors from clothing, decorations, and signage overloaded Fleep's compound eyes, which had evolved to detect subtle movements in dimly lit hive structures. Dr. Aris concentrated on maintaining steady breathing through the specialized apparatus, which worked overtime to filter the multitude of unfamiliar particles. Their human guides awaited at the designated landing area. The lead guide, a cheerful woman named Maria, approached with outstretched arms before remembering the no-contact protocol. "Welcome to Earth. We're absolutely thrilled you've joined us for this cultural exchange." Her voice, pitched higher with excitement, caused Thar to wince slightly. "We've prepared an amazing tour that covers all aspects of human culture. I personally can't wait to share our culinary traditions with you." The scientific team exchanged subtle glances. "Perhaps we might begin with less intense cultural elements," Thar suggested carefully. "Art, technology, or historical exhibits would provide useful context." Maria looked momentarily disappointed, but quickly recovered her enthusiasm. "Of course, we have a wonderful traditional craft demonstration happening right now. Let's start there." They followed their guides to an open-air pavilion where a metalworking demonstration had drawn a small crowd. A human artisan worked before a forge, shaping molten metal with practiced movements. Sparks flew as hammers struck red-hot iron, eliciting appreciative gasps from the audience. Note the extreme temperatures being utilized without adequate protective measures, Thar murmured into his recording device. Subject willingly exposes epidermal tissue to temperatures that could cause immediate cellular destruction. Physical risk assessment appears fundamentally flawed. Nearby, another guide activated a large screen displaying various extreme sports. Humans hurled themselves from great heights attached to elastic cords, raced at dangerous speeds, or navigated treacherous terrain on primitive vehicles. Dr. Aris stared in disbelief. Why would they deliberately risk structural integrity for non-reproductive activities? The physiologist whispered. This contradicts basic survival imperatives. A historical weapons display presented another troubling exhibit. Fleep diligently recorded the evolutionary progression of human weapons, mandibles clicking rapidly. Evidence of innate predisposition toward intraspecies violence, Fleep noted. Significant resource allocation to increasingly efficient termination methods throughout recorded history. Despite these concerning observations, the Cookbook incident haunted them. They knew they couldn't avoid the food pavilion entirely if they wanted comprehensive cultural understanding. The mission parameters required thorough documentation, regardless of personal discomfort. Eris occasionally caught unsettling whiffs of unfamiliar scents that triggered unpleasant memories of the simulated surströmming. Xyler constantly detected unstable organic compounds emanating from food stalls scattered throughout the exhibition grounds. Fleet became increasingly vigilant, recording every consumption-related ritual with nervous intensity. The human guides, oblivious to their internal distress, continued the tour with unwavering enthusiasm. After several hours exploring safer cultural elements, Maria clapped her hands together excitedly. Now for what you've all been waiting for. It's lunchtime, and we've prepared an amazing culinary tour of Earth's most beloved food traditions. Thar straightened his already impeccable posture. For the sake of comprehensive data collection, we will proceed, he stated, though his normally steady voice carried a slight undertone of resignation. Fleep activated additional recording devices, compound eyes reflecting determination despite obvious anxiety. Ethnographic completeness requires documentation of all significant cultural rituals. Xyler and Eris exchanged concerned glances, but followed as Maria led them toward a section of the exhibition grounds dominated by tantalizing aromas, at least to human sensibilities. The culinary pavilion sprawled before them, divided into colorful sections representing Earth's diverse food traditions. Crowds of humans moved from stall to stall, consuming various substances with evident pleasure. The scientific team steeled themselves as they approached. The first demonstration area. We'll start with something fun, Maria announced, leading them to a booth labeled Deep Fried Delights. Behind a glass barrier, humans submerged various items into bubbling vats of golden liquid. This is one of our most popular fair foods, Maria explained as they watched an employee lower what appeared to be a brown cylindrical object into the oil. That's a deep-fried candy bar. We can also deep-fry butter, pickles, ice cream, pretty much anything. Xyler's crystalline form darkened noticeably. This thermal transfer method destroys nutritional value while creating potentially carcinogenic compounds. The xenobotanist vibrated softly. The efficiency loss is significant, and the creation of acrylamides and advanced glycation end products presents unnecessary health risks. Dr. Eris visibly recoiled as a human bit into a deep-fried item, causing oil to drip down their chin. The impact of superheated lipids on the digestive system. The physiologist's voice trailed off as one hand unconsciously moved to the specialized breathing apparatus. Why deliberately reduce nutritional value and increase health risk merely to alter texture? Thar inquired, genuine confusion evident in his usually measured tone. Tiny Fleep, however, diligently recorded the human's evident enjoyment, the social aspect of the shared experience, and the element of novelty. The pleasure principle appears to override nutritional efficiency, Fleep noted. Priority hierarchy differs significantly from Federation standard models. Maria, interpreting their intense focus as interest, beamed proudly. Let's move on to something more sophisticated, she suggested, guiding them to the next section. The artisanal cheese display featured dozens of varieties arranged on wooden boards. The pungent aroma reached them before they arrived at the table. These are some of our most prized, strong-scented cheeses, another guide explained, gesturing toward particularly pungent specimens. Limburger, Epois's, Stinking Bishop. The more powerful the aroma, the more character the cheese has. Eris discreetly increased the filtration level on the breathing apparatus, but even the advanced technology couldn't completely neutralize the powerful odors. Fleep's tiny body trembled slightly as the scents triggered negative associations with the cookbook incident. A small screen beside the display showed an educational video about cheese production. The narrator enthusiastically described various fermentation processes before transitioning to a segment on specialty varieties. Kasu Marzu, the narrator explained, is a Sardinian sheep milk cheese notable for containing live insect larvae. The cheese flies, Pyophila casei, lay eggs in the cheese, and when the larvae hatch, they digest the fats, creating a soft texture. The larvae can jump up to 6 inches when disturbed, so diners must shield their eyes while eating. The video showed close-up footage of the writhing maggots in the decomposing cheese. Dr. Aris staggered backward, fur bristling in horror. Voluntary consumption of living larvae, parasitological implications, digestive compatibility. The physiologist struggled to form complete sentences as the specialized breathing apparatus worked overtime. Uncontrolled biological vector. Xyler vibrated in distress. Cross-contamination risk exceeds acceptable parameters. Microbial population entirely unregulated. Kthar's scales flattened against his body. I question the mental competence of a species that willingly ingests a substance being actively colonized by another organism. The logical disconnection is profound. Fleep continued recording, but had retreated to the maximum distance permitted by the equipment's range. Maria, noting their discomfort but misinterpreting its severity, quickly guided them to what she considered a more exciting display. Let's check out the Hot Pepper Challenge. It's really popular right now. A small crowd had gathered around a stage where humans competed to consume increasingly spicy peppers. The contestants' faces reddened dramatically as they sweated, tears streaming down their cheeks. Some coughed violently while others gulped milk between rounds. These peppers contain capsaicin, which triggers pain receptors, explained a nearby sign. The Carolina Reaper registers over 2.2 million Scoville heat units. Kthar watched in utter bewilderment as humans voluntarily subjected themselves to obvious pain. This fundamentally contradicts every principle of self-preservation, the xenolinguist stated flatly. Deliberately seeking pain for entertainment purposes defies rationality at its most basic level. The potential damage to mucosal tissues and digestive structures. Dr. Aris murmured, watching a contestant gasp for breath. Fleep, though visibly uncomfortable, continued detailed documentation. Competition elements significant. Physical pain expressions. Perspiration, lacrimation. Interpreted as part of enjoyment. Marked variation in tolerance thresholds between individuals, suggesting potential genetic or exposure factors. The scientific team was visibly strained by this point. Aris had developed a pallid undertone to the purple fur. Fleep trembled almost constantly. Xyler maintained a neutral external appearance, but sensor appendages worked continuously, registering concerning levels of organic compounds. Kthar had lapsed into an ominous silence. Yellow eyes narrowed to slits. The human guides began to notice their distress, but attributed it to general xenobiological sensitivity. They're probably just not used to so much stimulation, Maria whispered to a colleague. Let's take them to the adventurous beverages section. That should be a nice change of pace. Kthar, overhearing this with his sensitive auditory organs, felt a sense of impending doom. The team exchanged meaningful glances but followed their guides out of professional obligation. The mission parameters required comprehensive cultural documentation, regardless of personal discomfort. This is our most exciting area, Maria announced as they entered a section marked Adventurous Drinks and Delicacies. The atmosphere grew heavy for the scientific team, each member bracing for what might come next. The first display featured elegant packaging and information about Kopi Luwak coffee. This is one of the most expensive coffees in the world, the guide explained proudly. The Asian palm civet eats coffee cherries, and enzymes in their digestive tract modify the beans. Then we collect the beans from their excrement, clean them thoroughly, and roast them. The process gives the coffee its unique flavor profile. Xyler's crystalline structure vibrated with concern. Contamination risk from intestinal microbiota, unknown enzymatic interactions. Processing efficiency compromised by dependency on unstable biological factors. Dr. Aris felt profound revulsion at the thought of indirectly consuming waste matter. The digestive enzymes would alter chemical structures in unpredictable ways, the physiologist noted weakly. Try to maintain scientific objectivity despite mounting nausea. Fleet meticulously documented the odd connection between this strange origin and its luxury status, a value system that defied conventional understanding. Price increases proportionally with processing methods humans would otherwise consider contamination. Paradoxical value attribution. The next display showcased century eggs, preserved using clay, ash, salt, quicklime, and rice husks. The transformation resulted in dark green-black yolks and translucent brown whites with their distinctive ammonia odor. The alkaline environment causes chemical decomposition and protein denaturation, Zeiler observed clinically, though the xenobotanist's crystalline form had dimmed considerably. Potential formation of harmful byproducts during extended storage. Eris, already weakened from previous exposures, found the detailed description of the aroma and appearance overwhelmingly nauseating. It resembles preserved decay, the physiologist whispered, breathing rapidly through the specialized apparatus. The ammonia compounds alone would trigger intense aversive responses in most mammalian species. The final display would prove catastrophic. Large glass containers held whole venomous creatures, snakes, scorpions, and centipedes, preserved in clear liquid. Snake wine and scorpion liquor are traditional in several Asian countries, Maria explained enthusiastically. The venom dissolves in the alcohol, which is itself a kind of poison, creating a unique drinking experience said to increase male virility and health. The visual impact of whole toxic organisms combined with knowledge about venom and ethanol, itself a toxin, exceeded the team's tolerance threshold. Dr. Eris collapsed immediately, physiological systems overloaded by danger signals and profound disgust. The specialized breathing apparatus emitted a warning tone as the physiologist lost consciousness. Zeiler contracted completely into a protective state, the normally luminous crystalline form now dull and condensed. A low, buzzing vibration emanated from the xenobotanist's core, translating as chemically hostile environment detected. Containment protocols activated. Fleep dropped all recording equipment, emitting a high-pitched screech of distress before curling into a protective ball, tiny limbs wrapped tightly around the diminutive body. Even Kthar, who had maintained composure throughout, showed visible signs of distress. The scales along his neck and crest suddenly stood erect, changing from iridescent blue-green to a warning orange. His slitted eyes widened momentarily before narrowing to nearly invisible lines. Observation complete, the xenolinguist stated in an unnaturally cold tone. This species demonstrates dangerous levels of irrationality. Recommend implementation of isolation protocols. Chaos erupted as the human guides panic called for medical assistance. Emergency response personnel rushed toward the collapsed aliens, while confused onlookers gathered at a distance. What happened? Maria cried, genuine distress evident in her voice. Was it something I said? Kthar, the only team member still functioning, straightened to his full impressive height. We require immediate return to our vessel, he demanded, bypassing all diplomatic niceties. The cultural exchange has concluded. The hasty retreat created a diplomatic incident. Human officials attempted to salvage the situation with apologies and offers of assistance, but Kthar remained adamant. Within hours, the scientific team had been transported back to their orbiting vessel, leaving confused and concerned humans behind. In the ship's secure conference chamber, the team gathered to process their experience once Eris and Fleep had received necessary medical and psychological stabilization. The sterile environment, free from Earth's chaotic stimuli, provided some comfort, though tension remained palpable. I am preparing an official report emphasizing the dangerous, irrational nature of humans, Kthar announced, manipulating holographic data with precise movements. I recommend restricted contact or stringent control measures for any future interactions. Zeiler, fully recovered in form but still subdued in luminosity, contributed pure chemical data regarding observed risks. The organic compounds present significant hazards when processed according to human methods, the the xenobotanist vibrated softly. However, this is merely complex organic chemistry without inherent moral valence. Dr. Eris, still pale beneath purple fur, shuddered at the memories. The physiological incompatibility is profound. Their consumption practices trigger intense, aversive responses in our species that could permanently damage diplomatic relations. Fleep, perhaps the most resilient despite being physically smallest, had resumed reviewing notes after recovery. The xenoanthropologist's compound eyes reflected thoughtfully as tiny limbs manipulated the data interface. I wonder, Fleep clicked softly, if there might be underlying adaptive reasoning to these practices. The others turned in surprise. Consider the biochemical diversity of Earth, Fleep continued. Perhaps the capacity to process toxins represents an evolutionary advantage? The pursuit of intense sensations could serve some neurological function we don't understand. Xyler's crystalline form brightened slightly. The chemical transformations, while inefficient and potentially hazardous, do demonstrate remarkable adaptability to various organic compounds. Dr. Eris and Kthar remained unconvinced, but the seed of a more complex understanding had been planted. The official report sent to Galactic Federation headquarters contained multiple perspectives. Kthar's section delivered a stern warning. Human nutritional practices demonstrate profound irrationality and potential instability. Their willingness to consume substances that trigger pain responses, contain toxins, or involve biological deterioration suggests fundamental reasoning deficits that could pose security concerns during extended contact. Xyler's chemical analysis remained neutral. Observed food preparation methods involve complex organic compounds and processes that present various hazards including bacterial contamination, toxin formation, and chemical denaturation. Safety protocols for cross-species consumption would require extensive development. Dr. Eris contributed medical observations. Severe physiological incompatibility observed. Exposure to human consumption practices triggered intense, aversive responses across multiple species, suggesting fundamental biochemical differences that may preclude comfortable coexistence without significant accommodation. Fleep's anthropological notes, though edited for official submission, included previously gathered human perspectives. Subjects exhibited pleasure, cultural pride, and historical reverence regarding consumption methods that trigger aversion in Federation species. Significant cultural identity appears invested in these practices, which humans describe variously as acquired tastes, delicacies, and traditional medicines. The relationship between consumption and social bonding appears particularly pronounced. As the ship prepared to depart Earth orbit, Kthar stood before a viewing portal, watching the blue-green planet rotate below. The xenolinguist's posture conveyed absolute certainty regarding the danger it represented. Meanwhile, in a private research pod, Fleep quietly reviewed notes on acquired taste, cultural significance, and identity formation through consumption practices. Nearby, Xyler ran simulations demonstrating how a diverse ecosystem might lead to coevolution with toxins, resulting in species that could process compounds that would poison others. The mission had been deemed a partial failure due to extreme cultural incompatibility in the fundamental area of nutrition. Future interactions would require careful reconsideration and extensive preparation, if they occurred at all. Yet beneath the official conclusions, questions lingered about whether the profound differences might someday be bridged through deeper understanding, or whether some cultural gulfs were simply too vast to cross. The scientific vessel accelerated away from Earth, leaving behind confused humans and taking with it profoundly mixed impressions of a species that could transform poison into pleasure and disgust into delicacy, a concept that remained utterly alien to the Federation scientists, despite their advanced knowledge.